Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ from JJ Meets World. This episode is incredibly hard for me to get through because on Christmas Eve of 2023, I got a devastating message that my friend, my fellow performer, and one of the brightest stars in the sky, Shelly Fink, had died. It seems unfair that someone so young be taken, somebody who had so much more to give, and I've been I've been trying to deal with it for the last week now, and Tucker and I were speaking on the phone earlier today before I recorded this, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to sit down and talk because so much has been circling in my mind about losing a friend. And of course, you've heard other episodes where I talk about Jared and Dustin and people who we've lost so early, and Shelly hits harder than most. I'm at a loss for a lot of words, and so normally when I'm at a loss for words, I let the Muppets do the talking for me. And what I've decided to do with today's episode is I pulled the audio from when Shelly was on JJ Meets World. She was episode number 20, so over 300 episodes ago, and I thought it would be a good idea to give it a replay here. But I'd like to let the Muppets say this for me. This is a song called Saying Goodbye from the Muppets Take Manhattan. Saying goodbye, going away. Seems like goodbye, such a hard thing to say. Touching a hand, wondering why. It's time for saying goodbye. Saying goodbye, why is it sad? It makes us remember the good times we've had. Much more to say, foolish to try. It's time for saying goodbye. Don't want to leave, but we both know sometimes it's better to go. Somehow I know we'll meet again, not sure quite where, and I don't know just when. You're in my heart, so until then, I want to smile, I want to cry, saying goodbye. I will forever remember the 11-year-old girl who welcomed me into Rutland, North Dakota, and then auditioned to be in the first play I ever directed as an adult. And I will never forget her first line was, "I heard a man," and she delivered it with so much joy and so much fun, and I learned so much from her, and then she became a dear friend. She became a member of the Linebenders. She was a part of the North Dakota Air National Guard, and I think sometimes when somebody passes, you learn how many lives they led, how many different groups of people associated with them, and there have been a lot of people who have reached out to me. A lot of people have reached out to her family, certainly her husband, Zach, and it really is amazing to look at the tapestry of life. And Shelly accomplished something that few people do, even in 80 years, which is she made the world a better place. And we should all be so lucky to say that at only 33 years of age. I miss my friend. I miss my co-creator. And I certainly am going to be reeling from the loss for a very, very long time. And so thank you for listening to this episode, because it's a nice way to remind people how incredible this young woman was. And we'll be back next week with another regular episode of JJ Meets World. But for now, gosh, I miss my friend. All right, welcome to the JJ Meets World Studios, 50 levels below the center of the earth on the other side. Shelly nope, I'm sorry. Shelly Fink.
Shelly Fink now. I'm a new woman.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, God. One of these days I'm going to get it.
That's okay.
It was tough for me because I've known you as Shelly Pearson for so long that when I have to write your name on a check or something, it's very hard for me to remember. And I've had to rip up more than a dozen checks that I've written incorrectly.
I've gotten some of them too.
Yeah,
You've
where I'm
let
just
a few
like,
slide.
Screw it.
Hope your bank account hasn't changed.
Yeah. Was it weird when you changed? So you got married a few years ago.
Yes.
And
2
was
years
it weird
ago.
to change your name?
So weird. Yep. I didn't think it was gonna be weird, but it was super weird. It was like, people aren't going to know who I am. People would call my phone at work and I'd say, oh, Sergeant Fink. And then, oh, sorry. And they'd hang up. No, I'm still Shelly.
You're trying to reach me.
Yeah. Oh, so sad. I actually did feel like a part of my identity went away. It was hard for a couple weeks, and then I got over it.
Sergeant Fink sounds like a cast member from Hogan's Heroes.
Right.
It
yeah.
is, yeah.
Well, it sounds like Colonel Klink.
Yeah,
is what
exactly.
it sounds like.
Like his daughter, Sergeant Fink.
Yeah, exactly. Damn that Hogan, always escaping all the time, just having a good time. Do you know what Hogan's Heroes is, Shelly?
No, I never heard of it.
So I met Shelly in 2002, where she lived in Rutland, North Dakota.
I was 11.
She was 11 years old, and her mother, along with some other parents, ran a company called Entertainment Unlimited, which provided a end of summer theater camp for kids in Rutland and then the surrounding towns.
It was awesome.
The idea was, well, baseball has ended, but we have a couple weeks before school starts. So what are we going to do with it?
What are we going to do with these kids?
And what year did it start? Do you know?
Oh my gosh. Way before I was in it. My mom wrote a grant with another awesome lady named Pam from the town. And they're like, we need some arts in Rutland. And so they wrote a grant. I'm going to guess it started in like 95. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because I was very little when it started. I know you had to be a first grader to be in it.
That was the minimum.
That was
first
the minimum.
Grader.
So I know I wasn't in it for a couple of years. And they got directors, which obviously that's your first real job, right, JJ?
Thank God for Jordan Leppert, who was a kid I went to high school with, who also is Shelly's cousin.
Yep, cousin Jordan.
Because when I owned, Shelly's mom said, gosh, we need to find a director for this program. Reached out to her sister, who asked her son, who said, yeah, I know a guy who's a chump. I know a guy who would probably like to do that. And I jumped at the opportunity. It paid $1,000.
Which is a lot.
It was so much money at the time.
It's like half the Rutland economy right there.
Yeah. It is.
And then they also gave you a house to live in during this time.
Which was the real selling point for you.
It really was. I had just
how old were
graduated
you?
from high school. And so the thought of having my own place for a couple weeks was huge.
And I thought you were 30 when I met you for the first time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being 18, that's pretty young to handle all of those children for 3 weeks.
And my co-director, because I immediately thought, well, I don't want to go and do this all by myself, was my good friend Jared Nillis, who was 17 at the time.
Again, I thought he was 30.
Yep. So we had combined, we were 35.
Yeah,
so there you go. We could do it. And we went down there to put on this show. And so I've known you since you were 11 years old as Shelly Pearson.
Yes.
And I thought it was Fearson because it was a PH.
I know, it's so tricky.
Fearson. And it's hard for me to call you Shelly Fink. It's hard to just learn and to get the grips on that.
Yeah, I love my new last name though. It's easy to spell and pronounce, and no one screws it up. So I really enjoy being Shelly Fink.
Did you consider the idea of maybe like hyphenating or combining both of the names together, like Finkson,
or like maybe Pink? I considered that.
Shelly
My husband
Pink.
said no.
Oh, he said no to Shelly.
Yeah.
Or what about spelling Fink PH?
See, and then we're back to the PH confusing thing. So
yeah, but then people are going Fink.
Yeah,
no one's
true.
going Pink.
Pheasant.
Yeah.
Fink. Yeah, I get it.
Should we name words that have the PH in it?
Maybe. Go for it.
Okay, so you said pheasant already.
Yep. This is your idea.
I know. This was my idea.
Phone. Phonics,
phone.
Phoenix.
Oh, see, you're good at this. What other words have the PH
Oh my
to
gosh.
sound like F?
Ooh, never been so academic.
Phony. But you already said phone,
Yeah,
so
that's okay. You modified it.
those
It's a
are
different word.
homonyms. Right? That's when two words sound the same, but they're different.
When you grind up chickpeas, a homonym, a homonym, a hummus. No,
Hummus. Yeah, hummus is what happens.
No, it's homonym. No, you're right. Homonym.
Yeah, I'd like some garlic pepper homonym, please.
I actually did think of combining our last names kind of as a joke just to taunt my husband. He's a firefighter, so I think it'd be cool if his last name was like Firefighter Pink or like Firefighter Ferson.
I just think of Steve Buscemi going, why am I Mr. Pink?
Yeah.
Can't I be something else?
I think of the tragic moments like be like, "Nah, Pink is still in there."
There's a Michael Pink, right? A local musician. So
Really?
you could be related to him.
There's also like a actor with the last name Fink from Fargo, I believe. I believe he was classmates with Corey Calvert, who made it to a big movie, last name Fink, and everyone was like, "Are you related?" Don't think so.
Well, there you go. You're not related to any of the famous
No,
Finks.
not related to any of the famous Finks.
So Shelly, let's talk about your life.
Oh God.
Right. So
Okay.
you're raised
Oh,
in
God.
Rutland, North Dakota,
Rutland, North
which
Dakota,
we
great
have
little city.
talked about
Really?
several times on this podcast
We gave
already.
the Sheriff Travis paper saga.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rutland's a cute little town. It's like hopping for how small it is.
What's the population?
I'm going to say like 150 maybe, or right around there, 100 to 150.
Ice cream cone. Ice
But
cream
like,
cone.
See, that's tough because when you're talking about a population that small, if you're forgetting to add in a family,
They're
they're going
gonna
to be
call
like,
me
"What do you mean
later."
150? There's 158."
yeah, you forgot about the Johnsons.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I interned for Senator Conrad, everyone would be like, "Oh, Rutland." I'd be like, "Home of Pam Gullison," and they'd be like, "Oh, Rutland."
yeah.
And it was crazy because at that time it was like 2011. I think there was 36 businesses based out of Rutland. So for such a small little population, it had stuff going on.
So in Rutland, you spend your time what? Playing outdoors, riding horses, driving
building
combines.
I was never privileged enough to drive combine. I drove tandem, which is like the grossest tiny little grain truck ever, that has like 4 gears and they're about 9 miles apart. So trying to find like second gear is like 3 feet from where first gear is. Do you know? You don't know. Okay.
So that's the thing. That's the combine is throwing all of this into a truck.
We're talking about a horse, right?
Yes.
Yep. A horse named Tandem.
That has a shift.
Yep.
It's their
clutch?
automatic horses. Yeah. No, JJ and I have had these great conversations about city mouse, country mouse kind of themes. And one time JJ asked me the difference. How did this go?
It's the old joke of, who's having sex with the chicken has sex with the rooster, but who's having sex with or chicken has sex with the hen, but who's having sex with the rooster? And
Wait.
I've never heard this joke.
have you ever heard that joke?
So you have to see. I need you to start again because you restarted a few times. And I
Okay.
don't
We
know
have
which
something
part
to
of which
draw
take.
out.
The rooster has sex with the hen, but who's having sex with the chicken?
And a chicken and a hen are different. They're different.
So this is exactly the conversation I'm having with Shelly.
Okay.
And she goes, but they're the same thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like the chicken. And I'm trying to explain the joke to her. And she is telling me that the joke doesn't make sense.
It's like JJ.
And so
It
finally,
doesn't make sense. I don't get it.
finally, Shelly, and you were what, probably 13 at the time?
Probably.
In a fit of anger goes, huh, man, woman, human being, hen, rooster, chicken. And I went, oh.
Wait, a chicken is a baby hen?
No.
Oh my
A chicken is the
A chicken is like the species. Yeah, it's like a chicken. But a chicken could be a man or a woman. A man being a rooster. A female being a hen. Another misconception was when we got chickens, my husband and I have 5 hens, and JJ was like, oh my God, do you ever worry when you're making breakfast that just like a little baby chick is going to crack out into your frying pan?
Mm-hmm.
No, because we don't have roosters. And then that was a whole nother conversation.
So is it like it's like all tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises?
Holy buckets. I am not from the Galapagos. I don't know. I don't know what
Got it.
turtles are turtles.
No, it's all okay. All things that go like like that are chickens, but
Okay.
the male chickens are called roosters and the female chickens are called hens, but they're all chickens.
Just
And
like
then
all ducks are ducks, and a male duck is a drake, and a female duck is a hen.
Got
and
it.
then there's even below that subspecies of that because
Yeah.
you've got certain kinds of ducks like a mallard.
Yep.
I'm still confused though. Who exactly is fucking the chicken?
Yeah.
Right. That's what I said. And when Shelly explained
Definitely
this
a
to me,
rooster.
yeah.
Have you ever seen that news report of the it's a great outtake, a news outtake online. Oh, I love this so much. Where weatherman is finishing the weather report, pitches it back to the desk, and one of the news anchors, he goes, I swear to God, this is what he says. He goes, "It takes a tender man to make a tender forecast. Keep fucking that chicken."
Oh my God.
What?
And you see the other anchors go like, "Wait, what?"
Oh my gosh.
And then the next day he apologized for it on air. I don't know what he was thinking.
I don't know either.
But it's been turned into like remixes
I
and
think
stuff.
he had a
where people
stroke. That's the only thing you can
finding that
explain that
chicken.
with. You better go to the doctor and get a brain scan immediately. Bring back something bigger than a golf ball to be like, this is what happened.
I love that guy who was out in Bismarck and it was his first newscast and he's giving himself that pump up speech like, come on, you stupid fucking idiot. Like, you got this. You're no pussy. And then, and they're like, oh, we're rolling. This is going out. And he got fired. The first day of his job, he got
Turns out he
fired.
couldn't do it.
It was that the worst weatherman one? Because there was one of like a guy who was a weatherman.
This was just an anchor.
Okay.
He was just a regular anchor.
There's one of a weatherman who's like losing his mind, like nothing's going right, and he's like, and tomorrow there's gonna be sunny breezes, and hold on, I gotta.
He keeps looking at his little clicker.
And like it's like 5 minutes of just torture.
Oh my God.
I love it so much. I love news bloopers. They're the best.
Mm-hmm.
Too Tall Tom would never do that.
Too Tall's got some great bloopers from back in the day.
We've
Yeah,
been trying to get him on this podcast.
Yeah, we'll get him eventually. We gotta end up with a day where it's raining so he can't be out golfing.
He's got one of those last names that you think he should be in like a buddy cop show, and he's getting yelled at by his superior.
By the captain.
Shemansky,
get in here.
Shemansky. Oh, I know you think you're a little too tall for the rules around here, but time to pull up your britches and Shemansky, get out there.
Do you think that
and his partner Wheeler?
Yeah. For a while, Tucker and I bat around the idea of making this short film called, what was it called? Like The Game. And it was all the local weathermen getting together to have a poker game.
Oh, yeah. That's
so they get together every week and they have a poker game and they use little puns like, oh, there's a cold front coming in, 3 queens.
and that they're all making fun of Steve Poitras because he's the only non-meteorologist of the group.
And there'd be like a couple of the weekend guys who'd be like, oh, hey, I didn't know you guys were playing poker. And they're get out of here. You're not a weekday anchor. You're a weekender.
And they still keep Kip as like a weekender. They're like, no, you haven't put in your dues yet, Kip.
Right.
Kip.
I think this would be popular.
I think so.
Get on that.
Funny in a 50-mile radius around Fargo?
I would
else?
tune in for the news told by Kip Fink.
Okay.
I would tune in for that show.
Well, if I ever have a child, I'll name him Kip.
Ooh.
I actually wanted to name our future child that doesn't exist yet Huck, so it can be Huck Fink instead of Huck Finn. Got a hard no on that one. Hard
really?
no. Yeah.
I have a dream of one day having a daughter named Calamity.
Really?
I for some reason I want to have a daughter so I can name her Calamity.
Calamity.
But I doubt any woman on this planet will let me do that. That's her daughter.
Maybe she has to be delivered by C-section. The mom won't be conscious quite yet. And
well,
then
I don't
can
think
just slip it in there on the birth
hey,
certificate.
can you bring that birth certificate over real quick before she comes
just like
back
pen
up?
and ink it.
That's gonna work really
Calamity.
well.
Wasn't that kind of how your name came to be? Like, wasn't there a controversy?
There was controversy. There was an agreement on what my name would be, and that's what went on the birth certificate. And they settled on my nickname, Tucker, because so my first name is William.
What?
It's my legal first name.
I did not know that.
My dad's first name is William, and his dad's first name was William, and but ever since I was an infant, I've been called Tucker because when my dad moved up here, people called him Kentucky. And my mom started calling him Tuck. So I got the nickname Tucker, and that just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Tucker fits you. Yeah.
I like having 2 names. I think it's fun to have William and Tucker as both. But Tucker's not a legal name. It's just a nickname.
Although it really, I think if I said, hey, do you know William Lucas? People would look at me and go, no.
Or they think you're talking about my dad.
No, because when was the last time you heard your dad referred to as William other than Bill?
Well, but I think people know that Bill is short for William, so they probably do the math in their head.
So let me ask you this: what name did you give that cop in Sargent County?
I didn't.
Tucker.
No, I never met him face to face.
You didn't.
No, we never met. Sheriff Paper and I only spoke on the phone. They would have had my name as William if they would have looked at my registration and
you
stuff.
You should have told me my name was Tucker. He would have let you go.
Well, I was gonna say that's how he knew he was in trouble. Is people would be like, is this? I'm looking for William.
Yeah, are you Lucas? That's what Phil, I think, said one time, was that he pulled him over. Was like, you Lucas?
You Lucas.
Whatever. Fuck you, Sheriff Travis Paper.
in Rutland, Shelly.
I'll say it one more time in case you didn't hear what I said.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Sheriff Travis Paper of Sargent County.
You can never go to Sargent Couny,
I don't care. The statute of limitations is up.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You are not going to be able to enjoy Oof today.
Yeah.
Think of all the
Or
things that
I'll
you're
enjoy
burning
it
bridges.
more. Because I'll have a fun party while I'm there. I'm pretty sure Sheriff Travis Paper listens to this podcast.
You'd be surprised. Once Shelly's on it. Shelly's a pretty big deal. She was Miss Sargent
Stop
County.
it.
So
I dressed up like a man for my talent.
What'd you do?
Was your talent dressing up like a
Yeah,
man?
it was. No, it was like a Charlie Chaplin skit. They're like, her broad shoulders is gonna win this whole thing. Look how wide set her biceps are. I was like 15, so I could go either way at that age for sure. No, I absolutely did. My mom is so awesome and she loves theater, and so instead of like singing Under the Sea or A Whole New World like every other girl did, she's like, we should do a pantomime and the talent will be you won't talk for 3 minutes. And I was like, okay. So I did a pantomime, had a live pianist, and I did like a circus scene just like Charlie Chaplin would have done. It was pretty fun.
Cool.
Shelly's super good at cartwheels and
I did
handstands and
gymnastics.
stuff like that.
But the best part about it is I actually ended up winning the pageant, and for my talent, I put Vaseline on my face and then coffee grounds for like a beard, right? And it was dark backstage and quick costume changes. So when I put my evening gown back on, I still had like one full sideburn. And so in a couple of the pictures where I'm getting crowned, it's like, is she got a 5 o'clock shadow, or is that something that's just hereditary? It was definitely kind of creepy. Those pictures are good.
When Shelly graduated from high school and moved to Fargo to go to college, I bumped into her because she's working at Space Aliens as like a host. And I said, oh, Shelly Pearson, hello, how are you? And she's like, oh, I'm so good. And I had spoken to her a handful of times after I stopped like doing the summer theater. I did that for 5 years. And
you were by far our best director.
Oh, thank you so much.
You guys were so much fun.
And then you suggested some guys who did not work out so well, which is unfortunate. So they just didn't grasp the concept.
I kind of remember who it was.
It was Steve Maloney and Tim Lane. And they kicked kids out, and I was like, you don't get to kick kids out. This is a program for everybody. You suck it up and you deal with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
did you guys not memorize your lines?
Yeah, we can't read.
So I immediately think, well, I want to put Shelly into my comedy troupe Linebenders because Shelly's very funny. She's super energetic.
She can do a handstand.
Which
command.
nobody else could do. And so Shelly started working with Linebenders, and it was very quickly that I realized that I had sort of found if you found a frozen caveman.
He loves to call me, what is it, Encino Man?
Yeah.
Which I would argue.
Which you didn't get the reference when I used.
Of course not. We had like 4 channels growing up, and my mom was like, don't waste your time with TV. Go outside and play with the horses. And we're like, all right.
Right. So Shelly grew up in the exact opposite way I did, which is she didn't watch TV, she didn't watch movies.
Leave those horses alone. Yeah. You get in here, you watch TV. Stop messing with those horses.
Get back from that grain cart. So I remember the first time I thought, oh boy, we're in for a treat here. As I said, Shelly, blah blah blah. This movie's got Bill Murray in it. Who's Bill Murray?
Oh my god!
And everybody in Linebenders just glared at me, and I was like, I'm sorry, is this like a? Yeah. Is this like a guy that
well, he was, like he's been in a bunch of movies, now. And he was on SNL. What's SNL?
Oh my
and I was like, oh, maybe she just doesn't know. It's short for Saturday Night Live. What's Saturday Night Live? And she wasn't being like cute and trying to get my go. She had no idea. She had never. She was 19 years old.
18.
18. It doesn't matter.
Well, that makes sense.
And had never
knows
seen
anything about SNL at 18.
Right.
I had hundreds of episodes on VHS tape at that point. And so every now and then it was sort of like, have you ever seen Back to the Future? No.
Yeah.
One of them is with horses. But you got to start with the first one.
And then I remember vividly JJ being like, okay, Shelly, we need to figure this out. What kind of movies do you watch? And I was like, I don't know, I really like Moulin Rouge. And you're like, what? Moulin Rouge is what you spend your time watching? Oh, I thought that was going to be hip.
Yeah. It was
Didn't
like,
work
Shelly,
out.
what's your favorite movie? Moulin Rouge. What was the last movie you saw? Moulin Rouge. Do you own any movies? Black Beauty and Moulin Rouge.
Shut up. I did not own Black Beauty.
We used to. I gotta remember. We used to have an animated Black Beauty VHS cassette tape as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it now for years until you said Black Beauty. Man, I gotta dig that thing up now.
Follow-up question. What's VHS? Just kidding.
There's no way you wouldn't know what that is
Just
in Rutland.
kidding.
In fact, they probably don't know what Blu-ray is right now.
See, I think that's where you would be surprised. I find that when I got down to the rural areas of our great state of North Dakota, they were a lot farther ahead as far as like some technological things because they've been using GPS for years
We had.
when they were mapping out their fields. And so here I am being like, you guys ever see a TomTom? And they're like, yeah, we've seen a...
Let me know when your car gets auto steer.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be too afraid to own Blu-rays in Sargent County because I just think that Travis Paper would just confiscate them and then sell them at a police auction.
As you can tell, Tucker's got an axe to grind.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel like
now I have
Tucker's
a
got
platform.
some shade. Yeah, he should go run for county sheriff.
You know, our listener in, is it Israel?
Iraq.
Iraq.
You have a listener in Iraq? That's awesome.
Yeah. It will probably be listening to this being like, I've got to meet this Travis Paper guy.
We just got one in Zurich.
Really?
Yeah.
That's probably my
Two in
grandpa's
Canada.
girlfriend.
Oh, hey, that probably is what that is. Or someone with a VPN that's using an IP, but
Smart. Smart.
Yeah.
Computer talk.
So Shelly no longer.
Aren't you like a technical sergeant? Doesn't that mean you?
Yeah.
Technical means you work with computers, right?
Yeah, it's actually primitive sergeant. I just use
It's not aesthetic sergeant.
No.
I'm caveman lieutenant. So Shelly lives in Fargo and
I
she
do.
joins Linebenders, and so she gets to start her career in comedy.
And JJ asked me one question before I went to basic training.
Mm-hmm.
Shelly, I know they've put pen to paper on what they're going to do if the zombies attack. You got to bring that plan back to me.
You got to imagine that at one point someone said, listen, I know this is silly and ridiculous, but should a Godzilla ever arrive on our shores?
Oh, Godzilla?
We do not. Well, I asked about zombies. But,
Oh, okay.
Because Walking Dead was big at the time. But you've got to think that there's somebody whose sole job with the U.S. military is to say the what ifs. So there's got to be a plan on paper.
Maybe that's your calling.
That'll be my military
Specialty?
That's how you get in the door. Just, but guys, I've solved a problem that I don't think you figured out yet.
when the Godzillas arrive.
Right.
Yeah. You need to aim for the inside of the mouth because you can't penetrate the skin with a nuke.
Actually,
gosh, Tucker.
Technical Sergeant Michael Bay over here is already taking care of that for us. We're working on a mech suit. So, Shelly, here's the thing. I'm going to lay down some stuff real quick about the person who Shelly is today and my direct influence. Number one, I feel like a little bit of her humor has been influenced by things I've showed her.
I
and
agree.
I've taught her over the years. Shelly and her husband are married because of me.
a lie JJ told me once.
I think it starts even before the lie. I think it starts with my sage advice on breaking up with that guy from South Dakota.
Oh my gosh. JJ made me break up with a boyfriend in
Ow.
his house.
In JJ's house
Yeah.
or your boyfriend's house?
No, oh my gosh, no. In JJ's
So
house.
JJ was like, listen, I want you to break up this guy, but first I want you to call him over here. I'm going to make a pizza. I just want to see it, and I want him to know
see
that
it
it
happen.
happened here because of me.
So
No.
this guy, not only Shelly, but this guy also owes me a thanks. because Shelly came over and was telling me about this guy that she met on a cruise ship who
Oh
just
my
happened to be
God.
from South Dakota.
Oh my god.
That's your
And they
first message right
They were
there.
kind of smitten with each other, but he was going to school at South Dakota State, and Shelly's going to school at
you know,
North
he
Dakota
could
State.
hear this.
This is fine because here's the thing. Shelly comes over and tells me, I just don't know how I feel. Maybe this thing isn't going to work out, but whatever. And, he's transferring up here. So, and I said, well, he's transferring up here because he wants to be your girlfriend.
Be
or
my-
be your boyfriend.
That was the problem. I didn't want a girlfriend.
And
He was
Shelly's
so
like, no,
nice.
he told me that whether or not we're seeing each other, he's going to transfer up
Wanted to
here.
come
And I was
maybe
like,
to- yeah,
hey,
yeah.
listen, Tucker's shaking his head. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I tried the same thing once. I was like, oh, I'm going to move to Minneapolis. And it's not because of this girl that I'm dating that lives there. I think it's just time. But I mean, she also lives there. And then when that fell apart, I didn't move to Minneapolis.
Well,
I mean,
she
surprise.
should have went to JJ's house first, and he would have been like, "Call him right now. Keep it under 5 minutes." Do you remember the advice
Yeah.
he gave me?
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Oh, it was on
God.
the phone.
Yeah.
I guess you weren't in a deep relationship or anything. It's not like you've been dating for a while.
This
Had
guy-
been dating for a while.
Not
Oh my God.
really.
This guy was going to move
No.
to Fargo.
I thought that
making
was
me
after a
sound
cruise ship. I
horrible.
thought that's like, oh, we met on cruise ship and, that was it.
That's
You know
where the
the
romance started.
Best part about this whole story is JJ did a great like custom pub quiz trivia for my what's that called, groom supper for my wedding, and told this story to all my guests. And then my best friend Corey got up and told like underage drinking stories, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm glad Zach loves me, because this could go downhill real quick. His family's like calling an intervention right before the wedding. Is this the girl you know?
I just think it was important that he knows that,
You're the reason.
that, well, I do like to take credit for that.
You sure do.
Because so she breaks up with this guy. I didn't actually expect her to
Yeah,
like
he actually got
call
kinda scared.
right then and there.
He's like, I'm
So,
gonna go upstairs.
you know,
I'm gonna go upstairs.
we're sitting on the couch and she dials this guy up. She's like, hey, I don't remember what the kid's name is.
Please,
we're gonna
God,
call
don't
him. We're gonna call him
Travis Paper.
We're gonna call him Daryl. Hey, Daryl.
Yeah, I was Daryl.
Listen. And so
Good old Daryl.
And
Good
I'm
old
kind of
Daryl.
sitting there on
Poor
the couch
Daryl.
going, wait, are you calling him? You're calling him right now? Ugh, I feel uncomfortable.
I had to do it.
Can you wait
Yeah.
till after Goonies is over?
Yeah.
Right.
No, because then I ended it with, oh, God. So then we fast forward to me hosting pub quiz with
Wait,
JJ.
hold on. Did he end up moving here?
No.
No.
Okay.
Because he
okay.
didn't really want to go to NDSU.
No.
Shut up.
So keep going.
So fast forward, I hate you. Fast forward to
They just have a
hosting
great
pub quiz.
agriculture program, Shelley, and I hear the cost of living is really low.
And yeah, much
I want to
different
explore
than
my
Brookings.
German roots.
Fast forward to me hosting pub quiz at Fargo Billiards and Gastropub, and in walks this just tall drink of water. He's like 6'5" and just got a great profile. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is that? And I immediately start flirting with him every single week for like a good 20 minutes after pub quiz is over. And him and his friend are winning every single time. And I get no good response back. He's just like, well, nice to meet you. Shunk, gone every time. So I was like, oh man, this guy doesn't like me. Must be married or not interested or in a relationship or just thinks I'm ugly. I don't know what it is, but he's not interested. Then I was gone a week and I get back and I'm like, JJ, was that, that Army Guard guy here? He's like, yeah. And what did you tell me?
Was he's
asked
asking about you.
He asked
He
about
was
you.
wondering.
And I was like, oh my God, he does like me. He's just shy. This is so cute. I like him even more now. So I just laid it on thick. Still didn't get asked out. I was like, wow, it's been like 8 weeks of me just flirting with him. And then lo and behold, he shows up to a line bender show. I was like, okay, line benders are good, but we're not that good. He has got to have some interest in coming to see me.
Guess you just took a steaming hot dump on your improv
I
company
know.
on your podcast.
But this is 2011. We're much better now.
Oh, are we?
We are. So at the end of the night, I give him my number. I'm like, yeah, if you ever want to hang out sometime. He's like, oh, yeah. So he texts me right away. And then I was like, yeah, JJ said you were asking about me like a month into dating. He's like, I never asked about you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, JJ just lied to my face.
Now, if I had said,
And
he
now I'm
didn't
happily
say
married.
anything about you, would you have just given up at that time?
Yeah,
and been
probably
like,
because I've never had to
Did
pursue
this man become
someone.
the Mr. Shelly Fink?
Yeah.
Okay.
He is my perfect husband right now. He's great. So I'm happy for the lie. But
yeah. So you're welcome. I've also saved Shelly's life.
yeah, he did.
For
That's true.
realsies, I saved
Yeah.
Shelly's life in the flood of 2009.
Okay, you act like it was because of the flood.
Well, I think it's important that people understand.
Okay. No, it wasn't
Well-
2009 because I was in high school in 2009. It was 2000.
Oh, God, you're young.
Yeah.
2012?
It was 2010.
2010.
So the flood of 2010, I was walking the dikes. We were on 14-hour shifts. with the Air National Guard. We did a lot of cool like dike patrol, and I got really bad side pains. I'm like, oh, I think I've got the flu. But I was a little airman, and I didn't want to be like, I'm sick, I need to go home, and pull like the girl card. So I was like, it'll be fine. And I just tried to stretch it out and ended up getting relieved that day. So I was on base. And I couldn't stand up fully. And so they're like, you're sick. Go home. Like, you should have told us. And I was like, oh, you guys are way nicer than they are in the movies. And I tried to go home.
So the National Guard, it's not the Marines.
Yeah, I know. Well, we care a lot about our people, which is good. So they sent me home, and I just thought I had the stomach flu. So I call my mom. And she's like, oh, honey, I'm sorry. Let me know if you need me to come to Fargo. And I was like, yeah, it's weird. It just hurts right on my right side. It's like only on my right side. It's so strange. She's like, oh, that's a bummer. And neither one of us realized, like, that's your appendix. So I go home, take a hot bath, and like fall asleep in the bathtub pretty much, and don't answer my phone when she calls back saying, oh my God, it's your appendix. So she calls JJ. And JJ breaks into my apartment and brings me to the hospital.
Aw.
And as they're doing the CAT scan, is that what it's called? The CAT scan?
Sure, why not?
My appendix started rupturing, so they did an emergency surgery.
Oof.
But JJ also hit on my nurse and made fun of me when I got put on pain meds. So I think those cancel each other out.
The second that they injected whatever pain med it was, Shelly goes, oh, I feel like my eyebrow hair is growing. And I was like, holy shit, that didn't take more than 2 seconds.
I metabolize drugs really fast.
Yeah, you
like
are-
legal drugs.
You
I've
are
never
high
tried
as a
illegal
kite
drugs
right now.
I was so out of it. And then a bunch of people from the military came, and they were like checking on me, and my mom didn't like get any of their names. So I was like, Mom, who came? The next day she's like, they had uniforms on, they had short hair. And I was like, Jesus. Okay.
I think they were from the military.
Yeah, I think they were in the Air Guard.
It might have been in the Navy.
So, I mean, honestly, JJ did save my life.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Like, actually legit saved it.
And then the line benders went to go visit Shelly
my
in the
God.
hospital, and we knew we couldn't get a horse up there to visit her because she loves horses, so we brought her a bottle of glue.
And I looked at it, and I was like, what? I mean, I like art.
See, we weren't that good in 2011. I think that was pretty damn good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. You guys did. You all came to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And then
We brought you some squirt as well. That was your
Yes, I love
pop
squirt.
favorite.
there was also just a friend of mine from NDSU that came to see me in the hospital and brought flowers. And you're like, oh, I didn't know you had a boyfriend. I was like, I don't. And you're like, Shelly, that is a boyfriend.
That is definitely
And then turns
a
out
boyfriend.
he wanted to date. So you were right again.
There you go. See, I'm very good at reading people.
If you show up to the hospital with flowers, I say that's friend zone. JJ says no.
No. So let's talk about a couple things, and you tell me if this is still classified deep
my
stuff. But so you served overseas
Yeah.
with the North Dakota Air National Guard.
Yep.
To make Shelly mad, I will just say like, "Oh, how was Army today?"
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh.
it drives her nuts. But I have decided to stop
different.
doing that.
Yeah, thank you. It's different. It's totally different being in a different branch of service. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're a soldier. And I was like, no, my husband was a soldier. He was in the Army National Guard in North Dakota, which is a great program as well. But I am an airman. So
here's something I don't understand. So I thought people who are in the National Guard stay in the United States to guard our land here, but yet you
that's
served
our
overseas.
first mission. Yep. So we're both like state and federally associated or funded or however you want to call it. So we have a lot of flexibility. That's the thing I love about the Air Guard. So I can, do flood duty if people in Fargo are losing their homes or under stress that way, or I can volunteer to go to Afghanistan and plug in with the active duty Air Force and like help out their missions, which was a really, really good experience. Definitely makes you thankful for everything you have over here when you go places like that. And you were at the airport when I came home, which is awesome.
And I would be lying if I said I wasn't worried that you were going to come back as somebody different. And I think you did. I think it changed you in a lot of ways, but it didn't change you in the way that I thought might strip you of, the Shelly
My
that I've come to
silliness.
know and love over the years.
Yeah. I think every experience changes you. And that one definitely gave me a ton of perspective that I carry with me throughout my whole life. And so I deployed almost 4 or 5 years ago now. And it will never like leave me how lucky we are. Even when I got back here, I lived in like a little tiny apartment by NDSU and had this like 3x2 foot garden on my patio, like stoop. And I remember being like, oh my God, it's so cool that I get to like grow my own food and walk to class and not have any worries about safety. Like that was so amazing to me. I actually remember texting my mom like, hey, Zach and I are sitting on our front like little porch, which is like a 6x3 slab of concrete, next to a really busy one-way, which is loud and annoying. And we were so thankful for where we got to be. So it's a cool experience to be able to actually take that not for granted when you get back here.
When I met you at the airport, I had never seen fatigue in the way that I saw in your eyes.
So tired. Yes. The great thing about being a part of the Air Guard is they will like not make you transit so much around the U.S. when you get home. Like when you're coming back from your deployment, you just fly into Fargo sometimes and go home. So you don't have to wait a couple weeks here and wait a couple weeks there and like demob and pre-mob and all that. But I had been up for like 30 hours of flights and just not slept well. So I was so ready to take a hot shower and go to bed.
You also have had experiences that you probably didn't think were going to be a part of the Air Guard. For example, you told me about a trip you took to Japan with the Air Guard.
That was
where
amazing.
They're like, well, there's no bathroom on this plane. We got a bucket.
A bucket on a C-130. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. C-130s have like a little mini, it's pretty much a bucket with a toilet seat on it. And then there's like this little curtain. But
I would call that a privy if I had to.
Everybody knows what you do inside the curtain. It's not private. It's like, it's really primitive, but hey, it works. I mean, that's what you need.
Well, you're used to stuff like that on the farm, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're like, I gotta pee. I'm not gonna drive all the way back to the house. I'm gonna just pee right here.
I welded my brother Brian this like bumper dumper is what they're called. It's like it fits into your receiver hitch, and it's like a square metal structure with a toilet seat on it, and then it's got a lip under it where a 5-gallon bucket slides in. And he loves it. It was like the greatest present I've ever got my brother. It was a project I did at NDSU for my AGED degree. We did a lot of welding and woodworking and stuff. And so I gave it to him and he was like, he texted me pictures of just like a field. And he's like, I'm using the bumper dumper. I'm like, okay, I didn't actually need feedback. I just gave it to you because I thought you'd use it. So yeah, when they're out in the field doing custom harvesting, got a toilet on the go.
Yeah, people forget that things like a toilet are not. Whether you're in Afghanistan or a field in North Dakota, a toilet is a privilege.
A privilege.
Yeah.
I also would say I would really appreciate it if like he might add a curtain to the bumper dumper, but I don't think he will.
No. Wouldn't you just back it up a little bit into like the cornfield?
Yeah,
so
maybe.
that you got the privacy of the cornfield,
but also the
when
breeze.
you're going for it. Yeah, there you go. I would just not the amount of flies. Rutland. It had more flies in it than I had ever seen anywhere else.
There's probably more cows than people near Rutland, though.
Right.
So, speaking of agriculture and cows and horses, one time JJ came out to the horse barn. Do you know this story, JJ?
I know what you're going to talk about.
And we had a
JJ, leave those horses alone.
Shelly owns. You've had horses your entire life.
my whole life.
And she has a horse right now named Oakley.
Yep,
Oakley,
she's great.
One of the sweetest animals I've ever
Such
met
a
in my
sweet
entire
horse.
life.
She's so great.
And Shelly boards. Is that what you call it? Boarding?
Yep. It's like
Barning?
a daycare for horses.
It is like a daycare for
great.
horses.
What's horsey daycare?
Just a couple minutes from her home.
Yeah, it's really close.
There's a nice big barn meant to house people's horses. So it's a collection of horses.
Yes. And JJ came out there one time because a lady ran a red light and T-boned me in Fargo right after I came back from my deployment, actually. And I had to be on a muscle relaxer because I tore my trap muscle. And so JJ was kind enough to drive me out to the barn to see my horse.
Aw.
And I was like trying to, do chores and just kind of like see her and brush her. And there was this Frisian horse, which is like a beautiful, like looks like a medieval draft horse. It's all black. It's gorgeous. And it dropped down to take a pee. And JJ pulls out his phone to take a photo.
So Shelly's in another part of the barn doing something. And I witnessed this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, that is Tucker, it was the size of you. No joke.
The horse?
No, the horse's dong. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm getting my phone out. I have to take my gloves off because it's cool. And I'm trying to get a picture. And as I'm taking a picture of this horse's
barn
wang,
manager.
yeah, this stranger who's never seen me before walks in. And I'm like,
She goes, what are you doing?
Shelly's my friend.
Yeah. And then I was like, what were you doing? You're like, I was trying to take a picture of its dog. It's like, oh my gosh.
Huge.
Are you kidding me?
I just thought of all the opportunities I could have texted that to somebody and been like, oh, my day is tough. Be like, me too.
But if the horse was peeing, does that mean he wasn't engorged though, was he?
No.
No.
He was
So
a gelding, so he was just urinating. And JJ's like, oh my God.
But you
He
could
lost
see a
his
bunch
mind.
of the like.
But his
weenus.
dong was still as big as me.
Yeah, it was
While
big.
he's peeing.
It was huge.
So that
Huge.
means that if he had become engorged, which he couldn't because he's gelding, but then it would have been twice the size of me. If he's a grower, not a shower.
Oh, you'd have to imagine. I mean, it was like a fifth leg.
I think that if you're a shower and you're a horse, you would trip over it when you're running, when you're
Well,
galloping.
you're probably not When was the last time you ran full on sprinted when you had a boner?
I cannot compare, dude. You cannot compare my boner to a horse's
No,
boner.
but I'm just saying.
You can barely compare my boner to another man's boner.
I'm just saying-
let alone a horse dick.
I'm just saying, why would someone run or gallop
But you're saying
when there's an erection?
I'm saying if he's a shower, not a grower, meaning he's as long, flaccid, or erect. So if he's flaccid and then he's running, he doesn't have a boner, but he's got this thing flapping there.
Right, yeah, but it's not like
Like you think you trip over it.
No, I think
Think you just wrap around his legs and tangle him up.
No,
Then you have to
he's
put him
got
out
to
of his
worry
misery.
when he's doing hurdles.
Yeah,
this is
big time.
But this is
Unless he tucks it back.
This horse is the Michael Clark Duncan of horses. Okay, it's a majestic, big creature that you don't see doing a lot of. Like this horse.
the
This
Michael
horse.
Clark Duncan of horses.
It
Because he's
was.
big and black.
No, because also I don't think of Michael Clark Duncan as someone who's going to be running and like jumping over something in an action sequence. I'm going to see him like go through the wall.
Got it.
Like the Juggernaut.
Got it.
The Juggernaut, Shelly, is from the X-Men comic book universe.
Okay. Hey, speaking of that, have you seen Deadpool 2?
I have. Have you?
I have not. So
Yeah. It
spoilers.
was so bad, but so funny.
You didn't care for it?
No. It was a great movie, but it was so dirty. There were so many. I mean, I know
yeah.
Deadpool's gonna be dirty, but man, it was like jaw-droppingly shocking at times.
Yeah, there's some stuff that really
but
got you going.
hilarious at the same time.
Yeah,
Ryan Reynolds, he's a funny dude.
he is funny. Not in everything.
No, like what was that movie he did a long time ago about being a teacher that had cancer? That wasn't funny. Remember?
A teacher that had
Yeah, he was like a
cancer?
teacher. And he taught like middle school kids. He was always like deep.
Are you sure
He was
you're
like the
not
best thing you have is
thinking
time.
of
Is that definitely maybe? No, that was
No.
a movie where he was talking to Abigail Breslin.
shoot, what
I know
name.
that he was in this movie. Maybe it was like the lessons of.
No, you don't get to look it up.
Shoot.
We don't get to do that.
This isn't trivia.
We'll have right now. We've got a listener who's like, "It's this.
Yeah.
It's the Green Lantern." No,
the
it's
Great
not.
Lantern.
The Green Lantern.
It's the one Paul Revere used.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Ryan Gosling?
No, I'm definitely sure it was Ryan Reynolds.
I feel like Ryan Gosling did a movie where he was a school teacher with like a drug addiction.
Nope, it was Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to use the phones now. And while we're using the phones, this is a good opportunity for me to ask Tucker a question that leads into something with Shelly.
Sounds good.
When was the last time you rode a horse?
Oh, man. I mean, if I've ever ridden a horse, which I think I have, I would have been a kid.
The only time I've ridden a horse outside of a state park where you ride a horse down a canyon
Yeah.
is in Rutland. And I rode a horse named Cotton.
Okay.
And what I liked about Cotton was he did not go faster than I was prepared to go. But I was slightly disappointed when I hopped up because I thought, oh, this just doesn't feel right because I don't have like an awesome cowboy hat. And there comes Shelly right out of her house being like, oh, I thought you'd probably want this, and gave me a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And it was, there's cowboy hats that are really stiff. It feels
Yeah.
like they're kind of made out of like a plastic material.
Yeah.
That's what she had for me.
Gotcha.
And so I rode Cotton, and so I got the great shot of me like holding the hat up going, yeah!
Yep. Kept calling everyone Pilgrim.
I know for
Stop
a
it.
fact that I've never ridden a horse that I was in control of. So meaning I think I was on a
Just
horse
a wild one.
that someone was guiding.
Oh, okay.
You know, I found a Mustang in the wild and I jumped on his back and I
Maybe
tamed
it was
him.
a blind horse and he had a seeing eye person.
I think it was at a zoo.
Oh.
More than likely.
That was a source.
More than likely it was at a zoo.
The first time we were invited to ride horses with Shelly and her family in
you
Rutland,
embarrassed me.
Jared and I ran in. We're like, we're gonna do this, but we got to get costumes together. And so,
So
we went in
weird.
and we went into the little drama area and we found 2 sheriffs like shirts, like police shirts that had little badges on them. And so we wore those. And Jared's like wearing flip flops.
Yeah,
It was a lot of
both
fun.
of you, I thought. Oh no, you had tennis shoes.
I had
You
tennis shoes.
like white New Balance tennis shoes with calf high socks.
Yeah, that was me.
So if you really love horses, does that mean that you have some fringe affection for zebras or donkeys or other things that would be somewhat equestrian, but
Really
not a
big dogs.
but not a horse?
I don't know. I mean, I think I love all animals. But yeah, I think like zebras are really cool. Every time I hear a fun fact about a zebra, I'm like, really? And I compare it to what I know about horses. So it's like, you know how like little kids figure out what's what in life? They're like, anything furry is now a cat. So they'll call dogs cats and everything cats. And then they kind of like differentiate.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think you do with horses. If you love that breed, you're like, oh, so a zebra is very similar. You can breed it with a horse. It's very risky, but it takes 4 times the medication to knock one out.
So is a zebra not a horse technically?
No, I don't even. I mean, it's in the family of like the equus, I'm sure.
Equus, okay.
Yeah, the equine.
What do you think about the play Equus?
I've never seen it.
Oh,
You should. I think you'd really identify. Did you ever?
Really?
You'd also like the movie War Horse, or no? You'd like the play War Horse, not the movie War Horse.
I watched the movie War Horse and I was kind of like, oh, it was
seen it.
horrific.
Nope, Spielberg missed the mark on it. The play is
it good?
amazing.
Yeah.
But the movie.
Do they use live horses in the play?
They don't. They use this neat thing.
isn't that good though?
I mean, yeah, for the horse's welfare, but it'd be cool to see
Exactly.
a horse on stage.
See, okay, you don't really love horses
No,
that
I
much.
do. I love horses.
Dance horse. Dance for
when,
Shelly.
When I worked, well, you could just
Mama
use a
liked
Tennessee
that.
Walker, and they have a gait that looks like a dance already, so you don't have to train them.
Do you use terms like, oh, I galloped over to things?
No, but I actually did use the term like hot to trot a lot because I thought it meant that you were in a hurry, but turns out it.
I have a
Doesn't
theory.
mean that.
I have a theory, but you are the perfect person to tell me if
Please.
I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
A year or two ago, my girlfriend Kenzie and I went out to Kentucky for a vacation, and we went to a
Church.
horse retirement farm.
Oh, okay.
Ponyland.
Where I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically just a farm where race horses would retire, and they would have both male and female horses there. And I made an observation when we were in the gift shop.
Okay.
Because there were a lot of what I would call horse ladies, right? Ladies who fucking love horses, right? Right? They're just, oh God, I love horses. I can't wait to meet these horses. And I was like, from an outward observation, if I didn't know they were here to see horses, these could also be cat ladies. And so I'm wondering if it's true that, well, not all cat ladies are horse ladies. All horse ladies are cat ladies as well.
Ooh. I don't know that I know a horse person that doesn't like cats, so
Okay.
I think you might be onto something there.
Okay. Because I've
Yeah.
seen also videos of cats who sleep on horses.
our
which is
cats
really
used to do that.
cute.
It's a hell of
Farm
a
cats.
scientific observation you
Yeah,
got
it
there,
is.
Tucker.
Well, it's been proven to be an indisputable fact now.
Proven.
Proven.
Are we sure we know the definition of that word?
I do.
Yeah.
It means I'm right. That's what proven means.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. JJ Meets World. We're breaking down stereotypes and barriers, and we're letting people know what's what.
Yeah.
Speaking of what's what, Shelly, what's something that people take for granted that you on a daily basis think to yourself, oh, you just don't appreciate this enough? And that might be something now that you are a city mouse from a country mouse background. It might be something where you're a female versus the males of society. It might be something where you enjoy stretch pants and
love
other
stretch
people
pants.
like khakis. You can do a cartwheel.
Oh my gosh.
You see things from a different perspective.
Okay. First of all, just being from the Midwest, I I think that we have really good education here. And I say that in a couple things. When I lived in DC for half a year for interning for former Senator Conrad, I was really shocked at all the education issues and the overcrowding stuff that I saw in the East Coast. And then I have a good friend out there and I asked her a lot about public schools, and I was just really shocked that they're run the way they are. Obviously I came from a very small school. I know all of my teachers' names to this day and they would remember me, and I can tell you some cool thing we did with Dino Days in 3rd grade, and we had all these fun special opportunities, and that is not the norm across the US. So I think that's a big thing, is we just have a lot more attention when there's less people. So maybe the 40 below winters are good because not everybody wants to live up here, and then our kids can read good by the time they graduate.
I've always been told, 32 below keeps the riffraff out.
Yeah, I've been told that too.
And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I think the definition of riffraff, person to person, it makes a difference.
I'm pretty sure that recently in the forum there was a story about the top 5 schools in North Dakota.
Ooh, what were they?
Well, Fargo North was on that list.
Mm.
Fargo South was not.
Yeah, Fargo South. Yeah.
Just thought I'd bring that up too.
Well,
were you a Fargo North kid, Tucker?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Truth be told, Fargo South. I'm a Fargo South alumni.
I know you are.
And
we've
very proud of
words
that.
before.
It has changed drastically since I was there because we've added another major high school. So it's split the population of that school. It's split the teaching staff.
When I was at NDSU, we did a lot of observations at Fargo South, and one of my teachers actually taught there, and she had mentioned that it was the largest margin of free and reduced lunches went to Fargo South. Mm-hmm. So, that brings a lot of issues into the classroom. Not always bad, but just if somebody comes from poverty, they don't have all the resources that other kids do. So
it's funny though, because at least when I was in high school, and not that us high school kids knew anything, but in the inter-school rivalry, North kids saw South kids as the rich kids.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Even though there was probably no factual basis to say one group was more well off than the other.
Yeah.
It was more, South was still 2 or 3 times the size of North.
They're you live in a split level? I hate you. We only have single-story tiny homes in North Fargo.
I guess I don't know where that came from. Maybe just because it was on the south side where new developments were being made.
For sure.
And there was just there's more probably concentrated wealth in the south side of Fargo.
Did you feel passionate about the fact that you guys had mature trees in your yard?
I actually didn't. Well, oh, no, mature trees? Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
You're we're established.
I lived in the Horseman neighborhood of North Fargo.
Oh, okay.
That's where I grew up. And so it covered in really tall trees. But I never took that as what a lame neighborhood doesn't have tall trees like we do.
I think that the first thing I see when I see new houses, I'm you don't even have trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah. You need shade and swings and
My school spirit and loyalty only went so far
goes
too.
through and whips.
Right.
What was that?
My school spirit and loyalty only really went so far too. So the whole north, south, west, whatever thing, I only take it so far.
And I thought all kids from Fargo were bad kids.
From the big
probably
city?
doing drugs.
So
that's what I grew up
you
thinking.
weren't wrong about that.
Yeah.
My better half, Jill, also thought that because she had a friend whose family moved from Hillsboro to Fargo, and then all of a sudden they were she's really become a city kid. She's gotten real bad, and she's getting in trouble. And I was I don't think that that's true in the least. That's stupid.
Jill and I are cut from the same cloth.
You are.
We both love farm animals and gardening and being low maintenance.
Yeah.
We are.
You're low maintenance?
Yes, for sure.
I will say this about Shelly's husband. He is the patience of Job.
Yeah, he does.
Because every time there's something required of the line benders, listen, everyone, we've got to move all of this equipment. Shelly shows up, or she doesn't, but her husband always does.
I send a representative. I think it's part of being a good member of the group. And guess what? We don't always, a lot of times we show up together with a pickup to help move whatever it is. It might be a line bender out of their apartment or stage gear or whatever. But yeah, Zach's such a good sport. Yeah. I lucked out for sure. I'm so glad you lied to me about him being interested.
Do you still make your bullet earrings?
I have not done that in a long time. Yeah, he's just really nailing the hillbilly coffin shut.
Well, no, I think you had a pretty popular Etsy store going on.
You can make fun of it all you want. I paid off my car in college.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the tone of JJ's voice when he's the
bullet earrings.
Bullet earrings.
Yeah, and guess what? I sold so many to the state of North Carolina. You'd be shocked. You think there's hillbillies up here?
Oh no, we
Well,
definitely know North Carolina is far worse.
Yeah.
Well, and we also
North Carolina,
A lot
Louisiana.
of wedding orders. Who
Florida.
wears 12 gauge shotgun shell earrings?
These were shotgun shell. That was my next question.
There was a variety.
these are they're bullets.
There was like everything from like a 40 caliber to like 270 Winchester, all the way up to like 12 gauge. I would like set cheap Hobby Lobby stones in the middle. They were very pretty.
Why did you stop?
Because I didn't have a heated garage, and so I was like, like with like a little vice grip bench and a saw, and I was like doing all this in the garage, and it was really cold.
Where did you get the bullets?
From like all of my farmer friends that hunt and target shoot, and I got them all for free, so that was cool.
So you're just getting casings, basically?
Yeah, just getting the casings. Yep.
And then could you turn any bullet?
I mean,
you can't tell.
Has to be
Everything's a bullet to me.
Yeah. It has to be a certain size to make like an earring, unless you're just going to do like a flat, like a 22 would be too small, obviously, and it doesn't have a center primer. So do you know how a bullet works, JJ?
Yeah.
Comes out of a gun and it kills
Okay.
a person.
So there's a little-
First you have to shove a pipe cleaner down, and then you take a little tiny flask and pour the gunpowder in, and then you take your bullet bag and put that in, and then when you hit it, a big spark goes off.
Yes.
And then you get those damn dirty redcoats.
Yeah, and then you take
Back
a little
to
round
Lexington.
top and you turn the Gettysburg battle. Yeah, no. That is very, very similar to what we do now, but it's a little cleaner and it takes less time. So there's a center primer sometimes where like the weapon will have a mechanism that hits it, and that's what sends the bullet down the barrel. And then there's like a side primer, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it doesn't have a center primer, and it just hits anywhere along the rim. That's a 22.
When you make a list, do you use bullet points?
Yes, I do.
I'm clever.
And the bigger the point, the higher the caliber.
The higher the caliber.
What? How do you own firearms personally?
Yes.
How do you store them?
Very safely.
So give me.
We have a gun
You don't tell
lock.
me where it is,
'Kay,
because
so
what if an
3
intruder
feet.
is listening to this?
Right. No, we have gun locks on all of our weapons, and then we have them in safes. So we have a very smart dog. We don't want her to get in there and mess with them and be like, brrr, when we get home one day, that would be rough.
Yeah, one day you're gonna walk in the house and she's gonna have a big "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Right,
with
yeah.
Some magazines across her.
She looks like that rocket guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, the way it is. She's
The
like,
little raccoon?
Yeah, she's like half German Shepherd, half healer, half raccoon, half person. She's a rescue dog. She's the greatest.
I don't know if you can be like 4 halves of something though.
No, you
just
can't.
FYI.
She is 200% of a normal dog.
And she kind of is, because when you started fostering her, they said this dog is terminal.
Yeah,
she has
she's so
heartworms
sick.
so
Aw.
bad that she's not
so
going to
sick.
make it.
It all starts with my husband going bear hunting with his friend, and he had no cell reception. And he decided that it would be a good idea to extend the hunt 2 days without telling anyone. And so for 2 days, I thought he was dead. I couldn't get a hold of him. I was like on the brink of calling like the search and rescue people in Idaho, 'cause I had no idea where they were. And then I just get this text, "Oh, hey, back in cell reception, decided to extend the hunt 2 days." And I was like fuming. And so oddly enough, 2 hours later, the shelter called me. They're like, "Hey, would you foster this dog? She's so sick." And I knew that my husband was going to be like, "No, you're going to get attached." So I was like, "Bring her over."
Nice.
So
nice.
they dropped her off. And I was like, I hope she's not housebroke. Like,
I
hope
agree with
she's
this tactic.
just such a little turd. She turned out to be the greatest dog ever. I told her I loved her within 3 hours of having her at the house. Zach was like, "You said you were going to get attached."
You said you were going to be back on Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at my bear skin.
Right. I had to make a Tinder profile when you were gone to start over.
Turns out he was hunting panda bears
Yeah.
at a zoo.
Shelly's dog did something that the vet had never seen before, which is
Yeah.
all of a sudden the dog started coughing and
So
coughing and
gross.
coughing and coughed up this weird
8-inch worm.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they put in a bag and they brought it to the vet. And the vet had never heard of a case where
Yeah.
a heartworm had worked itself like into
Through a lung.
like the lungs to be coughed up.
So they're
They-
like, "There's no way it's a heartworm, but
Yeah.
we're gonna ID it just in case." And we're like, "I don't know what it could be." And then they're like, "Yeah, it's a heartworm."
Is that
Damn.
crazy?
She's a little champ.
So that was the worm got out of her, and then
Yeah.
she didn't have worms anymore, or
Well-
is she still being treated?
No, so it took like 5 months of treatment, and she was kind of touch and go. We brought her to the emergency vet a lot, and she was like, they were like, just go home, make her comfortable. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I was so sad. And she ended up making it, obviously, and she's super healthy now. But Zach was home alone with her one morning, and she was coughing. She'd have these coughing fits where she'd just like lay down and had no oxygen. And she coughed up this worm. And this is where my husband, Zach, who has never really been a dog person up until this point, reached dog dad status, because he pulled the worm out of her mouth and put it in a plastic baggie to take to the vet. I was like, most people would be like, flush it. But no, he wanted that sucker identified. So he brought it to the vet, and they were like, oh my God, it's a heartworm. We've never heard of this before. But she actually had them so bad that they encircled all the ventricles of her heart. And you can't like do surgery, obviously. You can't kill them really quickly because they'll like fall out of the heart and cause blood clots, and then she'll die anyway. So you have to like slowly treat them so they just like slowly die and dissolve, I guess. It's a super gross disease.
Poor
They
puppy.
said don't Google it. Don't Google it. It's so gross.
Whatever you do right now, don't go on
not
Google
Google
and
it.
type the word heartworm dog coughing fit. Do not do that.
Don't do it. So gross.
Definitely don't do that right now.
No.
Is there a band called Heartworm?
Not yet.
There should be.
Yeah, right.
But worm
Yeah.
spelled WURM. HART worm.
I think we've got the makings of a great punk band going here.
Are you going to start it?
I sure am.
Do you think you could have the theme song to like Milk Babies play in the background?
Probably. It's amazing how much Milk Babies became a thing down in Rutland.
Oh my gosh. Milk Babies.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
you didn't want to actually teach us theater, so you just were like, look at what my friends and
Yeah,
I
look at
do.
this thing we made.
Okay,
That's
we're
got
gonna
Mama
be
Luke in it.
napping in the corner.
Listen,
We
when
played so many games
when I found out,
that we couldn't read.
well, that was one thing. When we chose a 3-act play that was very heavy on words, and it was like, uh-oh. But when I found out that other directors didn't take the kids for the whole day, they were taking them for a couple of hours every day, but we structured like an 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
thing. You guys must have thought that we were just the bee's knees, because
We
they
had
had
to
daycare all day long.
I'm pretty sure we had to wake you up though a couple of
A
times.
couple of times. Well, who is the one who does the rooster call?
Sheena Brecker was a girl in this theater, and this theater club thing, and she can crow like a rooster. Like you could not identify an actual rooster or her. And so they weren't there, and the hall was probably open anyway because it was Rutland. So we went to their little cottage, and there was a window open, and she like got up in there.
And it scared the hell out of me.
Remember that cat we named Shits?
Yeah.
There's a cat, like just a neighborhood
Rutland?
cat in Rutland that would come by the house and we'd be grilling in the backyard. We named it Shits.
Mm-hmm.
It's the end of that story. I just remembered Shits. I loved that
There
cat.
were so many kids in Rutland that like still talk about JJ and Jared.
In fact, one of the kids, Jared Huckle, has now got a burgeoning hip hop career.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
And so I remember they used to play a game called Rutland Ball that
That was the greatest.
that used our backyard as well,
What,
as like
what
several.
kid's dad kidnapped us for like 2 hours?
What was Chase's dad? No. It was Brady's dad.
Brady's
it was Brady's dad. We lived next door to Chase's dad, I think. But
It's all getting foggy.
they're like, oh, Jared's up to bat. He's so good. And I'm like, oh, how good is he? And they're like, well, they don't call him Home Run Huckle for nothing.
And then a bunch of kids got in trouble and kicked out of the play by their parents because they apparently fell off their bikes and got mad road rash along their whole body. And then it got discovered that they were actually tethering a mattress behind a 4-wheeler and whipping cookies. And that's how they got hurt. And so because they lied to their parents, they got kicked out of the play for like a week, right?
This is not during my time.
Oh man, I swear it was. And they were like, it doesn't matter that you were driving an ATV without a helmet and with like 6 kids on a mattress behind it. It matters that you lied.
There have been a few times in my life where I've said, listen, I'm not going to be the happy-go-lucky man I am normally. I have to be a stern task
I'll never forget.
master. And one day I'm having lunch and knock on the door. and this woman says, "Is Jared here?" And she accused Jared of smashing pumpkins that she was growing,
which is the highest crime in Rutland.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was mad. She's like, "I grow those for the children for, Halloween. So you've ruined the town's Halloween." And so, Jared is just kind of taking this in and this yelling. And so she leaves. And I said, "Okay, first and foremost, did you?" And just to make sure. And he goes, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "Okay, well, if it wasn't you, there's one easy way to find out who it is."
Yep.
And we're going to take care of it. Now, I want you to walk into the hall with me, but I don't want you to say anything, Jared. So we go back after lunch, and the kids are all like, "Oh, we just went to the cafe for lunch." And I was like, "Everyone grab a seat and sit down right now."
I've never seen JJ so mad.
And so they sit down, and I go, "Listen, I know one of you know what happened. Jared was just accused of smashing all these pumpkins, and I want to know who did it. I want to know right now, or we're done. We are done. You can have silent reading. You're going to be required to be here."
And then, no, you said you were going to quit. You're like, "I'm going back to Fargo."
Yeah, like, we don't need to take this. We never got pies from this community. People around here hate us.
Because you dressed up in dresses for your photo shoot for the memory
Which I
thing.
thought was really funny.
They were like, "Who the hell?"
Yeah, they're like, "What are we doing?"
"Who did we?"
Those Fargo kids are coming. Lock up your pumpkins.
And
yeah,
so-
lock up your kids.
Yeah,
The devil's
a couple
here.
little hands go up, and I'm like, "Yes, Mackenzie." And she goes, "Philip did it."
Oh, and
And I
Philip was
go,
like, "No."
I'll be like, "All right, I'll go take care of
Which
it."
is funny because Philip was like the nephew or the grandson of the lady who accused Jared.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so when she had asked who did this, Philip just said Jared.
Said Jared.
Because
Because he was
that
like,
makes
"My
sense.
grandma's going to beat the crap
Right.
out of me."
To be fair, Jared looked like someone who'd smash pumpkins.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and Jake came and wrote like "kill" with
In lighter fluid
and then lit it on fire. So it was
on the
burned.
street.
It
On the
burned into
street.
I
street.
remember Jake getting so drunk that when I was there, we're all trying to sleep in this house. And Jake comes in. He's laughing. Him and Jared have been up drinking. "You guys, I am going to kill every one of you while you sleep. I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to get a knife and I'm going to stab you." And that's what Jake said. And so Jared bear hugs Jake and just holds him on the ground. And Jared's like, "No, buddy, you're not going to do that." And Jake is laughing maniacally.
We had a
This-
MacBook Pro under the bed that had a light that was kind of pulsating, and he goes, "It's listening to me! It's listening to me!"
Okay, I'm starting to think if my mom ever hears this podcast, which I hope she doesn't.
I own.
Do they have Facebook, internet,
She-
Rutland stuff?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have internet.
Well, you didn't know what SNL was, so.
Well, we had internet. It was like the kind in high school, but I still just was outside all the time.
Got it.
Ion's
My
gonna love
sister
this
knew.
podcast.
No, my mom's gonna be like, "I hired these folks to work with children."
Hmm. I think that we were the most engaging because we were the most childlike,
Yeah.
right?
Weren't there those like 3 triplets from Lisbon that you always would hit on at the Dairy Queen?
They sure were.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we would have to get out of Rutland. We'd have to get out of Sargent County.
Yeah.
Just because
like Island Fever.
Yeah, we're just like we gotta
Go see a movie.
we gotta do something. Because we didn't have a fun house full of like farm stuff to hang out with. We didn't have. I mean, we were
let
left
you
to our
ride
own
our
devices
horses.
like twice.
Okay.
Other
Even once
ti-
you've done that,
yeah,
dude, 2
like,
days
what are you
in a
gonna
row?
do?
Come on.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, like, come on, guys.
You rode horses yesterday. Let's do something else.
But that was it's been fun getting to know Shelly, and been fun to get to watch Shelly become the person that she is today. And
And you
I'd like to
take
think that
Credit.
I'd like to take some credit for a lot of the good things. Very few bad things and bad habits that Shelly
I
has.
stick my foot in my mouth a lot.
Yeah, but that's all right.
That's you too, though.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. Just listen to this podcast.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
In fact, in the upcoming episodes, you're really going to be shocked.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Sometimes.
Give me an example of when you stuck your foot so far down your throat that you just couldn't recover.
Yeah, I was asked to MC Relay for Life in Rutland, and I was like, "So how many tons of corn did we do this year?" And immediately, everybody in the crowd crosses their arms and goes, "Okay, yeah, well." And it's bushels of corn, not tons of corn. It's bushels.
I was emceeing with you, and I was like, no. If the dress didn't do it,
I was like,
the
well,
corn
there we
did.
go. There we go. It's done. It's done. It's taken care of. How many tons of corn?
You know, I was actually with this young girl the other day that was coming out to do a tour of our base, and I had just stuck my foot in my mouth so far with my friend. I was like, "Is so and so the only boyfriend you've ever had? You guys have dated forever." She's like, "Mm-hmm." And then right after that conversation ended, another friend was like, "They just broke up last night."
No.
And I was like, "Oh my God, that was the worst timing ever. They dated for like 9 years and I just picked today." It was horrible. So I go to get this girl. She's like my age. She's so nice. I was like, "Oh my gosh, how was your day?" She's like, "It was great. I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth in class though. I said the stupid thing." I was like, "Oh, I just stuck my foot in my mouth with my friend and her boyfriend." So I tell her the story and I was like, and she was laughing and we were laughing. We were driving. I was like, "Yeah, do you have any dead pets I can ask about?" And she gets silent. And I was like, "Oh, that was weird." And I look over and she's crying. And she goes, it's fine. It's just that my dog had to be put down at 5 o'clock today. And we've had her for 12 years. And I was like, I want to jump out of this vehicle. How does this happen to me? 2 in one day. It was horrific.
That's tough stuff.
Sometimes you just can't help it. So I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I was mouthing, I'm so sorry, but no words coming out. I'm sorry. Tucker, you've got to have some good.
I do it so often they all blend together. I'm trying to think of a particularly good one. I can't off the top of my head right now, but I'll owe you one once I can think of one.
I'm sure it'll happen in the next week. Just write it down.
It's probably happened today during this podcast, I bet. But
we won't find out about it until we listen.
Yeah, we'll get some angry email.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of waiting for that to happen.
How many listeners do you have?
Well, we're close to 1,000 downloads. We average between 50 and 60 downloads per episode right now. So that's roughly our audience size.
How many of those people have email? And how many have email?
I would assume if you have the technology to download a podcast,
don't assume.
More than likely you have an email address.
But maybe they're streaming it off of something.
Yeah.
So you might.
The only thing
they
they
might
might
be at
stream
the
it off
public
of would
library.
be Stitcher, and it's not on Stitcher yet. Everything else you got to download. And usually if it's through iTunes, you got to have an email to sign up for iTunes, though. But
So how many emails have
Well, you can just
gotten?
go to our website though and listen
that's true.
to it.
That's true. It's a really good point. It doesn't need to be an email. I just want an angry message.
Like a.
I love that shit.
Do you?
Oh, yes. One time at Theater B, so we did a play a couple years ago called Straight White Men. And I was the sound designer for it. And in the script says, asks you that for the pre-show music, that it be angry music sung by women. And the more vulgar or aggressive, the better.
Okay.
It should sound like it was a playlist that was not made by a white man, basically. So I basically just went online and found like all these
Avril Lavigne.
it was more like it was a lot of hip hop and rap music.
Okay.
And some other stuff too. But there were a couple songs by like Nicki Minaj that had a lot of explicit language in it. And which I love. I love that kind of shit. So we did that. And we didn't warn anyone like, hey, watch out, you're going to walk into a play with vulgar language, because if you need a warning, maybe you shouldn't leave your house at all. If you need to be warned about language. And I get it if there's maybe kids might come to it.
Was it a kid's show?
No,
I'm
it was not a
okay.
kid's show, wasn't it?
I just want to make sure.
Straight White Men Junior.
Hey, I think there's some private schools out there that would be like, yes, this is our production this fall.
But we got a message.
Good point, JJ.
I think she posted it on our Facebook wall. I think it was a public post, if I remember correctly. And she was upset that we had put that music in the pre-show. She wasn't expecting it. And she had something to the effect of, you owe it to your audience to not do this to them, which is utter bullshit. But I love that kind of stuff. I love it when someone is angry and it's okay that they're mad.
Yeah.
But they're not mad about something that actually matters. Like if I'd burned her house down,
Right.
then it'd be like, oh, well,
You owe it to me to give me a tiny home.
I understand why you're mad at me because we burned your house down. But if you're mad because you heard language you found offensive, I could give a shit. And so I love that. And not that the point is to upset people.
Right.
But if you're someone who gets upset by it,
Yeah.
I feed off that. So just
You would love
maybe don't listen.
You would love the story of JJ inviting me to, who is that female comedian?
Maria Bamford.
Maria Bamford.
Oh, I love Maria Bamford.
Oh my gosh. I loved her up until the moment that she made this horrible joke about veterans coming home and then committing suicide when shouldn't they just die over there? And I had just gotten back from a deployment and I was so mad. I literally almost stood up in the theater and was like, you suck, and walked out, which is very against my nature. But JJ was with his couple friends. It was like you and Jill and me. And I was a guest at this place. JJ had invited me. And so like the only thing that kept me in my seat, even though I was like fuming the whole show, was that I was invited to this with a friend. And it was not my place to be like, get out of here. But I was so mad. I was not happy about that.
It was not a very good show start to finish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think it changed after that joke because I don't think people received it well.
No.
I don't think it was just me. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, I think she lost a good chunk of her audience right there.
I was like, you could make such a funnier joke about things like that.
Well, okay,
Wasn't
so
good.
obviously I'm not a veteran. I've never served. I think in the right context, that joke is fucking hilarious because stand-up comedians are not, when they're on stage and they're performing, they're not existing in a context where they're supposed to mean the things they say, right?
Totally. It's just supposed to be shock.
It's supposed to be some other weird, dark way of looking at it, right?
As long as it's creative, it's usually funny. But I was like,
I mean, yeah, and that's kind of in the eye of the beholder too. But Bill Burr had a really good joke that got someone mad at him, who was a veteran. But the way he says it, that it was like most people in the military loved the joke, and the joke was that, you know, I get that our service members, like say in the Air Force, are heroes, but really the guy who like points in the direction that the plane's supposed to take off, like, am I really supposed to celebrate that guy? You know, it was a better joke than I'm telling it. Yeah. And he said it in front of a crowd of service people first. Yeah. And they loved it.
They thought it was great.
Ate it up.
Of course, yeah.
And then he told it in front of another audience. And one guy in the audience who was a veteran got really upset.
Right.
And well, I think if you get upset over something that's your business, it's really tough for me to get upset at a comedian who's under no obligation to say things that they mean or things that you like.
Totally.
When they're up there. Now, if this was someone who was writing an opinion piece in the forum, right, that they're saying this is my opinion, that's completely different.
Sure.
But yeah, when it comes to comedy, I don't think anything is sacred.
And I think there's a lot of things we've said in Line Benders where we're like, okay, it was just going for the joke, you know? So I think the comedian in me can kind of understand it, but it was just a crude joke in my opinion.
So I've heard she's refined that bit. So this is something that you could tell she was workshopping. So coming from the mechanics of comedy, there are jokes that are bad jokes, and you either turn them into good jokes or you get rid of them. But the way you find out whether or not this thing's going to have a life is by telling it in front of total strangers and seeing what their reaction.
Which is terrifying. That takes a huge amount of courage.
It is. And so I think this is a prime example of we were there when the baby bird was kicked out of the nest before it could fly.
Yeah.
And I saw that with Mitch Hedberg, where I saw Mitch Hedberg live, and he really hadn't found some of the correct beats with some of his stuff. And so you walk away and go like, God, that was pretty crappy. Like that wasn't very funny at all. And then you hear the album 6 months later and you can hear the subtle changes and nuance. And you go like, oh, okay, this is hilarious. Yeah. And all he had to do was change it from being like, oh, snowmen to Santa Claus. Sure. And then boom, all of a sudden this thing has a punch.
It also kind of highlights the fact that things are funny until it's a group that you identify with. That is a part of the joke, right? Yep. So like, well, I guess I don't need to give an example that makes enough sense as it is, but again, the stand-up comedian is under no obligation to say anything that they mean or to say anything that you like, you know, or any performer on stage for that matter. I think if you're going to an artistic performance, you know, you're free to decide if you like it or not.
Totally. And that's the cool thing about, like, we can, freedom of speech, we can be like, I hate that, or I love that.
Absolutely.
And they can, it is a beautiful thing.
I guarantee you there are people who hate this podcast right now.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a sheriff
named Travis Paper who can fuck himself.
I find this to be interesting. Here's a plug for Line Benders. So one of the things I tried,
the most explicit I've ever been. I think it's because I'm on coffee number 2.
Say, you're really pushing a lot of buttons on this one.
I've got a lot of caffeine surging through me right now. And I think I'm gunning for that angry letter to come. I want that first one to come to me.
Yeah, I think you're going to get it after
We've
this.
been online for 2 months now, and we haven't gotten an angry email
That's
yet.
because JJ is a people pleaser, and he's always been a great schmoozer.
People are like, I love this podcast.
JJ
You got to get rid of that Tucker, though. That guy just is so angry.
He could wake up 2 hours late for a meeting, hit a kid in a crosswalk, and people would still be like, JJ's the best.
I don't know. I don't know if it would be
him.
2 hours after this. Maybe if the kid was a bad kid, no one liked the kid.
I'm sure that they'd spin it that way.
I like people pleasing. I don't know what it is about it, but I want everyone to like me.
Yeah,
and
you're good at it.
I have found that I like with my new job on the radio, there are definitely people out there who don't like me, and I think they
probably
don't.
found the dress photo.
They should. Well, you'd think that'd make me even more popular. Look how
Really?
progressive he is.
One thing when you have exposure as a local public figure or whatever, that means that you get to a certain level of notoriety where people are confronted with you whether they like you or not, right? Like if you're a small enough thing, only people who like you are going to seek you out.
Oh, yeah,
But
true.
if you're large enough where you're just, you're on KFGO or you're doing something else that has a pretty big audience, there are going to be people who, just because you're there, they're like, oh God, why do I got to listen to this guy?
Yep. There's somebody who told me recently that I'll never be able to change and they hate me and they'll just continue to hate me.
Wow.
And I thought, whew.
Was this a listener? Or?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so I just thought to myself, I was like, you are missing out, man, because
Yeah.
I'm going to start a rhubarb festival and you're not going to be invited.
There's a fun game to play with negative feedback online.
Tell me.
This is how I did it, because I used to work for a poker TV show and I managed our YouTube channel and our online stuff. And so I would see all the trolling that comes in, just the automatic stuff that comes in if you're online putting anything out there. And I would think of it as a game, so that the more negative or the more gross someone's comment was, the more points I was earning.
Oh.
And so I would just try to make it like the goal is to get someone to say something shitty to me online.
That is not what you do to uplift humanity, Tucker. You got to bring out the best in
Uplifting
people.
humanity is not my goal.
Oh, it's
Humanity
mine.
can fuck itself.
Oh my gosh.
I am the opposite of JJ.
He's trying to elicit a response from people that makes them feel bad and good at the same time.
Oh my
because
gosh.
it makes Tucker feel good solely.
Tucker, who hurt you?
Nobody did. Oh no. I don't mean
You just discarded all of humanity.
it's
on a podcast.
I love it when people get upset over stupid things
stuff,
and
yeah.
decide they need to express those feelings
Yeah.
online behind the
Maybe
veil.
it's-
Because the
yes.
thing is that the things that people are saying online, they wouldn't say to you
Right.
like
They'd be
this.
like, oh yeah, no, it's fine.
Right? But you fucking suck, and I think you should shut this down, right? They'd say that
Yeah.
online. I love that someone took the time that, I feel so angry about this podcast. Say, I'm going to take a second and I'm going to write something angry online, and that's going to show them that I'm upset. But what they don't realize is I'm totally cool with the fact that you're upset.
so
It
then
doesn't
you're
really
just
bother
taking all
me.
the power away.
It doesn't really bother me that you're upset at all.
Yeah.
You know who is ahead of the game on that? When Kevin Smith wrote Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
That's right.
The end of the movie, Jay and Silent Bob get paid a huge amount of royalty rights for their likeness for a movie. And they take the money and they fly across America and they find all of these users of a website called moviepoopshoot.com who said that their characters are stupid and idiotic, not understanding that the characters are, but they took it personally. And so they beat the crud out of these thousands of people who anonymously said that their
You're
characters
the
are
ones
idiots.
who are the ball lickers in the middle of that Mooby's restaurant.
Uh-huh. Ugh, I'd love to eat at
But
a
you
movie.
see, I wouldn't
See,
take.
Kevin Smith is a director.
Okay.
And he also plays a character
don't
named
know.
Silent Bob.
Okay.
And it's a
Put it on my to-do list.
yeah. I'll put it right below finishing the Back to the Future trilogy.
Oh, I still have to do that.
I can't believe that you would just quit that.
How far did you get?
I watched 2 of the 3 movies. JJ bought me the
So
trilogy.
not the horse one, the first 2.
Is the third one the horse?
The horse
yeah.
one.
Yeah. So no, not the third one. And this is another endearing quality about my husband. He can't lie, even if it's like a white lie or it betters the world. He can't do it. So JJ's like, oh, did you watch all the movies? I was like, uh-huh. And Zach's like, no, you didn't. You didn't watch the third one. I was like, yeah, I did. And I looked at him like, don't mess this up for me. And he's like, no, you didn't. And I was like, yeah, I did. And then JJ caught wind of it. And he's like, what happened to the third one? And I was like, there's Doc Brown.
And I was like, you're not mentioning the horses at all. You're full of shit.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe you didn't take my side. And Zach's like, you didn't watch it. Like, these are my friends. I just want you to move their stage and lie for me.
That was, I officiated Shelly's wedding.
And he did a great job. A fantastic job. It was the best ceremony I've ever been to.
And like, we had to meet beforehand. So I was like, I need to know like what we want for like tone and pacing and all these kind of things.
Great.
And I think my only note was like, well, just make sure that it's long, but not too long. So I was like,
we had both been to weddings that were like 7 minutes long, and it's awkward. It's like,
that's the best kind.
No, I think like a 20-minute wedding to a 30-minute wedding is perfect because it's still super short, but it's like something.
It needs to be like slightly entertaining.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's got to have some meat to it. Like, I don't know. I just think I don't know. I wanted like a 20 to 30-minute wedding, and you gave us like a 27-minute wedding. It was great.
To wear this device.
Yeah.
Shelly's grandma is hard of hearing.
Like super hard of hearing.
So you know those things that people wear that have harmonicas?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, it was sort of like that. But she was like, I couldn't turn it on right away because it was a direct feed to her hearing aid.
Yeah.
And so when I'm chatting with people beforehand, I'm like, I don't want to like, let Shelly's grandma hear that whole thing. So I turn it off. And when I got up there, she was like tapping her ear and I'm like, oh yeah. And so I turned my little pack on, but it looked like I was wearing some kind of
chunky necklace.
Yeah, like a really big chunky necklace.
I guess that's one downside of the progression of technology is we'll never see scenes in movies anymore where someone's holding that horn to their ear.
Yeah.
We gotta hear what you're saying.
Had those as party favors. That would have been good.
Ear
Our wedding
horns.
was so much fun.
It was a blast.
It's a blast. We had a great time. We actually got our whole wedding party to go to the emergency food pantry the day before our wedding and volunteer as like a group of 14. It was so much fun. We had a blast. It was great.
And you got some great publicity.
Oh my gosh.
Good
the food
for
pantry is
you.
like, we're calling the news. And again, Zach is like, I'm not talking to the news. Just won't do anything.
And Shelly had a bad experience because she was told that she could bring her dog. And then at the last second, the place said, well, you can't bring your dog.
My dog is the best. She's a therapy dog. She is so well trained. And we're bringing a horse to this venue. That was fine. And we asked about the dog, but apparently there were certain stipulations. You could only bring the dog 30 minutes or some garbage before photos, and then they had to leave immediately after the ceremony.
Why?
We were there. We rented the whole venue. It was a farm. It was a farm. And we were like, okay, well, we rented the whole venue, and my horse is coming. So I didn't think that the dog would be the problem. They're like, she has to go right now. The guy was so rude to me the morning of the wedding. I was almost in tears. And when they talk about the stress hitting you and you crying about like an Oreo cracking in two, they're not kidding.
Yeah.
You just lose it. So we had to send my dog home and she couldn't be there for anything because
what a dick.
Yeah.
So
I was
this
so
guy
mad.
is a real jerk. And then he
Such a
turns around
jerk.
and walks in and they're like, did you hear that this wedding party volunteered rather than having like a big shindig yesterday? They volunteered and they went to the emergency food pantry and they stocked.
It was all over the news.
And they're both veterans and like immediately I think this guy probably thought, oh,
he was so mean to
shoot.
me the morning of. I was like, wow, get it together, buddy. You can ask people a lot by being nice and being like, hey, I'm sorry you misunderstood. Could you put her in the car for a while or whatever? Nope. He's like, she's got to go. I was like, are you kidding me? I was so crushed.
I feel like if you had said, go ahead, kick us all out right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, kick us all out right now. You tell me what you're going to do about this dog.
I know, but I was too nice. I shouldn't have been nice. I should have been like, this dog is more well-behaved than half the children coming today.
Well, in fact, I mean,
She won't ruin
you shouldn't
anything.
have had to speak to him at all. Like,
I
it's
know.
your wedding day.
Yeah. I should
should
have
have
had
been someone else to-
bridesmaid or JJ. You should have pretended to be like the Pope's nephew.
sit down.
Yeah.
I need to know
Yeah.
right now. Well, Shelly, thank you so much for being a guest
No
on JJ
problem.
Meets World. If people want to see more about you, or maybe they
Come to a
would like
Linebender show.
Linebenders.
Yeah.
We're so much better than we were in 2011.
Or hang out at a horse barn or a dog park near you.
And what if people want to be recruited into the North Dakota Air National Guard?
Oh my gosh. Just Google us. We're all over. I love being a recruiter. It's fun.
Shelly has really opened my eyes to the fact that there's so many different opportunities. Because I thought you're the flag guy, right? Like you were talking about, like that's your job, right? And there's so many different
more
opportunities.
cool things you can do. Yeah, if you have it if you want to serve your state or your nation, I think that's awesome. I wish more young people would do it. It gives you a mental toughness that a lot of people don't have. So I'm so glad that I'm a veteran. I'm very proud of that fact, and it's changed me for the better. So I'm happy about it.
It's a good pitch.
I love it. It's great.
All right, Shelly, get out of here. This is a long one.
What time is it? Is it time for brunch?
Yes, to the brunch mobile.
JJ meets World.